U.S. cities are showing strong interest in hosting the Summer Olympics in 2024, and one of them is Los Angeles. Representatives from L.A., San Francisco, Boston, and Washington met yesterday with top executives of the U.S. Olympic Committee. If Los Angeles is ultimately chosen, it would become the first American city to host the game 3 times. The last time was in 1984, opening 30 years ago on the last Saturday in July. They were exceptionally memorable games, and here to tell us about all of that is Geoff Foster, sports editor for the Wall Street Journal. Geoff, good morning. This really is a fascinating games in terms of firsts. We had the first time that some athletes were doing commercial endorsements. We had the first color TV games. Historically, how do people remember the 1984
Well, it's
games?
huge. I mean, you could even make the argument that it saved the Olympics. If you look at the 3 summer games prior to 84, 72 in Munich, they had this terrible hostage crisis. 76 in Montreal was a financial disaster. They lost close to $1 billion. 80 over 6 in Moscow, over 60 countries boycotted. And then 84 comes and it's very popular, makes a lot of money. And, you know, no one really wanted to host it. Los Angeles kind of got it by default. And then you look at 92, the next time there's a bidding process, countries are lining up to host the Olympics. Everyone wants to do this after they see the success in Los Angeles.
How much of the city of Los Angeles was actually used in those games?
The whole city. It was basically the Southern California Olympics. They had the rowing up in the north, almost near Santa Barbara. They had the equestrian basically in San Diego. They really spread it out. They used all like 300 square miles of Los Angeles, which was smart because they were really worried about the traffic, and that made things easier. There was no congestion to all the events in one area.
When you look at the Montreal games, though, in 76, they lost $1.5 billion. So what did LA do right that led to profits?
Well, the first thing they did was they didn't really build any venues. They built a swim center and they built a velodrome for cycling. And they also had corporate sponsors on those 2 particular venues. It was like the McDonald's Swim Center and the 7-Eleven Velodrome. And building venues is really what sinks, you know, host countries. You know, look at Greece. They spent a ton of money on venues, and they never really recovered any of that money. So by using their existing venues, places like the Forum and the LA Coliseum, that saved a lot of money, and also using corporate sponsors, really the first major sports events to incorporate corporate sponsors.
Of course, the one big black mark on these games was that the Soviet Union, then a major powerhouse, of course, athletically, didn't participate, in part retaliation for our not participating 4 years earlier in Moscow. How much did that affect sort of the impact of these games?
Well, it definitely affected. I mean, the Soviet Union had 125 gold medals in 76. I think East Germany had 90. That's a lot of gold medals that weren't, you know, that were available in 1984. And I think you saw the Americans and a lot of Western countries do way better than they probably should have done because it was a little watered down. Especially events like that, the Soviets dominated, things like gymnastics and weightlifting, that kind of thing.
I think the images that we're seeing of these athletes are also a flashback, because I think for so many of us, these are the athletes that are synonymous with the Olympics. Who really stood out in '84?
Well, Mary Lou Retton was a huge star. She was the first American gymnast to win. Part of that, she benefited from the Soviets not being there, but she was a huge star. Carl Lewis also was a big star. He sort of matched Edwin Moses' feat of 1936 of winning 4 gold medals in track. Greg Louganis emerged in those Olympics. He won 2 gold medals and then would go on to famously win 2 more and hit his head in '88, but he did start in '84.
And then, of course, Michael Jordan played
Michael
for the basketball
Jordan,
team.
yes, of course. It was right before he went to the NBA. It was sort of his coming out party for the world as this international superstar. He had, you know, been at North Carolina. He was about to go to the Bulls, and he helped really the last U.S. amateur team to win a gold medal, which was a pretty good team. It was sort of a dream team of amateurs. They had Patrick Ewing, Chris Mullin, Michael Jordan.
If only Sochi had really studied LA.
Yes, yes. Don't build anything.
Right. All right, Geoff Foster, thanks so much for being with us this morning.